despite all this stuff, that we stop to do the work on the mitochondria, and our cells start to age, and that's when we start to have age-related decline. At least that's a big contributor from what I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
it's just
know, go ahead. Sorry,
yeah,
there's a bit of a delay.
it's just too bad that most doctors here don't have a holistic approach, because if they understood how everything is connected, if they understood to really get to the root cause, if they understood to really focus on when the symptoms started, when the illness started, then so much would be improved. People wouldn't have to have these long illnesses, and we wouldn't have to hear all the time that there's no cure or you have to accept it. But all this terminology has just gotten passed down by doctors, so people really believe it. They really believe if they have certain illnesses that they can't get better, that they have to accept it, that there is no cure. You know, they're always looking for the cure. But I think that's an unfortunate word that they use. It's kind of like saying it's a magical spell that you're going to find. It's not, magic. We just have to take steps and take consistent steps for our health. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I know one of the things that you're also really passionate about is women's health and childbirth. So tell us about your book. I think it's going to be an amazing book. I'm excited for it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited about it too. So I actually started writing this book last year. I started writing it last July, and it was completely inspired. I never planned to write a book about childbirth or about childbirth around the world. I just started to get all these signs, and I became very curious. And I realized that we're in this age of female empowerment, and yet there is this subject that women are not talking about openly. They're not really talking about the full story of what they have experienced, being a mother, being pregnant, the childbirth experience, and even postpartum. So there's still a lot of secrecy. There's still a lot of shame. And that's something that was really surprising for me when I started researching this book, because I started interviewing women. I interviewed over 60 mothers all around the world. And right from the beginning, I heard that women were feeling shamed. They were feeling shamed from other women. And they were also shaming themselves based on society and based on standards they felt from society of what was expected from them. And I was just floored. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're doing one of the most miraculous feats ever. And yet you're feeling shame. You're feeling guilt. You're feeling like you have to keep this a secret. And yet there's this side of some women who do share their experiences with their friends, and they feel like, oh no, we share everything. But what I found is that that's not true, because as you probably know, if you have shame, you don't talk about it openly.
Yeah.
Right? You want to keep it secret because there's something that you feel is so bad that you would feel like you would die if you had to share it with somebody else. And so that's what this book is really exposing, like the truth. All women all around the world, all different experiences. I didn't limit it to just home births or hospital births or birthing center births or natural childbirth or with medicine. I said, tell me all your stories. Tell me everything. And then the truth came out, and women were very, very candid, very open. And some of them, it was the first time they'd ever shared the whole story before. Some of them, it was the first time they'd shared the story without crying. Some of them, it was the first time that they'd really seen how much they have transformed and how much they've grown through their motherhood. So it's just really beautiful, really amazing. So really beautiful stories. And I've decided it's going to be a 2-book series because I had so many fabulous interviews and want to share as many stories as possible. And I also did interview some childbirth experts as well. So I interviewed an OBGYN from Peru. I interviewed a few midwives, a nurse, childbirth expert, all sorts of different professions. So I think that really gives a really rich view from a lot of different angles.
Yeah, I think this is so important. And I think you're right. Women are taught that it's not okay to talk about our bodies. I mean, one of the things, we can barely even talk about periods. And, it's like, come on, like, this is just a natural thing. Like, this shouldn't be a shame. This is a sign that things are functioning in our body. Like, it's normal. And it's not dirty. It's just the normal part of life. So I think we're going through a big shift as a society and as a people of these things that have been previously been suppressed and kind of like, we don't talk about it. So whether that's women's bodies, childbirth, racism, all of these things are coming up to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
it's so, so important. And I just want to share, I was with my cousin when she gave birth, and she did in a hospital. And I was really, this is my first like in hospital experience, and the first experience being around someone during the birth process. I was just really disappointed in, I guess, how clinical it all felt.
Yeah,
And
it's become very clinical. Mm-hmm.
And as a psychic medium, I was like, where's the spiritual aspect? Where's the recognition of the importance of there is a person, a soul coming into this life and
into the world.
And that it's something remarkable. And of course, we need to be safe and do all the things. But I felt like it was just so lopsided in terms of just focusing on just one part of this whole picture. And I feel like that's happening in society as a whole, where we've just been very analytical, focusing on the physical, focusing on the medical. And now we're like, well, wait a minute. What about the soul? What about the spirit? What about the emotions?
Yeah,
so whether that's to do with illness or childbirth or whatever, we have to address that.
Exactly. It used to be such a very natural process that women did together. No doctors involved, just mothers helping their daughters, grandmothers coming in, perhaps a midwife. And it was a very special time, very bonding time. And then, then it moved to the hospitals. And then the hospitals had completely changed because doctors really wanted more control. Then there was the fear of safety. There was a fear of being sued. So a lot of all of these rules, all these waivers you have to sign is really because doctors, hospitals are afraid of being sued. And also it's about being as efficient as possible, like really having that time limit. So you go into a hospital and you're on the clock. You have a time limit. So you have to really know what it is for that hospital. Some, it's 24 hours. If you don't give birth within 24 hours, then you have to have a C-section. For some, it's 8 hours. It really depends.
Wow, 8 hours.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So you really have to know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My cousin was in labor for 36 hours and then they ended up doing a C-section. I was like, oh, it was just like the worst of both worlds, like a long labor and then also a C-section.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And so women go through a lot emotionally, as you said, so they need to be supported emotionally. It's very important.
That's what really struck me is like, oh, I just felt the lack of that aspect, and the medical part is important. I
yes,
I
of course. Safety is important.
We want everyone to survive, and
yes, we do.
Like I feel like there can be this bridge between the two where we're both are being addressed in a better way, and I think it's great your book to help shed light on different options and what's really going on, because I think you're right. Most women don't talk about this. And then the first time they learn is when they're actually going through it themselves. And then it's too late to implement some of these things.
So that's what I want my book to do, is to really empower women, to educate them, to inspire them, but to empower them, because I think that's what's happened for a lot of women is that they give birth and it's just the act of giving birth, but it's not an empowering experience. And it used to be really, woman was like, wow, okay, I'm so amazing. I'm so strong. I did this. This is great. And I'm here with my ladies. We're all supporting each other. But now women have become disempowered through the experience, because a lot of times they're not even giving informed consent. They don't understand what medicines they're being given. They don't understand what technology is being asked for them to do.
Right.
So really they're giving their power away at this time where they are so vulnerable. They're most vulnerable. So it's really, I hope this book will help the conversation so other women can feel that they can speak up no matter what their experience is. There's no right or wrong, but it's very important to have this conversation so that women have an understanding, so that they know, because so many women, like you said, they don't know anything that happens until they give birth or until they take the baby home. A lot of people say, I never thought about what it's going to be like once I'm home. Or I never knew what postpartum depression was like. I've heard of it, but once I had it, I didn't even know I had, because I was so in the moment of just survival.
Yeah.
So I think this book will hopefully empower women so that they can speak up, but also so if they choose to have a baby, if they haven't had a child yet, they can have an empowered birth.
I think this is so great. And I'd like to transition to talking about another thing that I think has also been suppressed, just like we're talking about, things, I think anything that we're ashamed of that has this intense energy, I think is really coming to the surface now to be addressed.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing this now with our society, with all these things that are like, a lot of people like, I didn't know that was going on, or that's.
Yes, no. I know.